Now part of the Darkcast Network. Welcome to Indie Podcasts with a dark side. A mother of 4 is murdered in her home. The main suspect? Her son. The only problem is he's claiming insanity, and many professionals are backing up his claim. Will he get away with murder? Let's find out right now in the case of Dawson McGehee on Love and Murder. Welcome everyone, welcome to a new episode of Love and Murder, the weekly true crime podcast discussing relationships gone terribly wrong, where our motto is, you're either someone's last love or their first murder. I am your host Kai, and in today's episode, we're discussing a case of family and psychopathy. Before we begin, I want to say that this episode is sponsored by my lambs in Patreon. As always, I want to thank you for continuously believing in me and also thank you for your donations. Be sure to subscribe to Love and Murder right now while you're listening so you don't miss a case. If you didn't know, you can also subscribe on our Patreon so that you don't have to hear intros or commercials, and you'll be a sponsor of Love and Murder. I'll talk more about Patreon after the show. In the meantime, though, as we always say, grab your butts, grab your apple juice, and let's get into some Love and Murder. On Sunday, October 30th, 2011, 55-year-old Kathleen McGehee went about her daily business in Stockton, California. She went to church with one of her older sons, Justin, and his family. After that, she called her other son, Colin, and left him a voice message. She was making jambalaya for that Monday, and she basically needed to know how to use the rice cooker that he'd left at her house. She didn't call her daughter, Caitlin, because on Friday, October 28th, she'd gone away to a retreat with her friend Samantha, and she was supposed to be picking her up later that day anyway at the University of the Pacific. Caitlin was supposed to call 1 hour before she got close, like when she got close to the school, so like 1 hour before she got to the school. Her other son, the youngest of the 4, 26-year-old Dawson McGehee, was at home. Kathleen went to the grocery store near her house and then headed home. At 4 p.m., Colin called her back and gave her the instructions that she requested. At 5 p.m., Caitlin called Kathleen to let her know that she would be at UOP at 6 p.m. Her mother didn't answer the phone, so she left a voice message. A couple minutes later, her brother Dawson's phone number popped up on Caitlin's phone, and when she went to answer, it hung up. It only rang for like half a ring, you know those kind of rings, and then as soon as you go to answer, it stops. So she thought this was a mistake because Dawson never calls her. So instead of calling him back, she called her mother again. Again, no one answered. Dawson called Caitlin back, and when she answered, he said he was, quote, just calling to see how she was. So she told him that she was trying to reach their mom, but she's not answering. Dawson said, quote, oh yeah, I think the home phone isn't really working. Well, I tried her cell phone too. Quote, oh yeah, I don't think that's working either. I think she's having trouble with the two. Well, you're at home, right? Then ask mom if she's going to come pick me up. Quote, I'm not at home, Caitlin. I'm not at home. So the fillers in between the quotes are, words that I put in there. But when I say quote, that's actually what was said by Dawson. So after he said, I'm not at home, she was like, well, are you coming to pick me up then? But Dawson said that no one asked me to do that and hung up. Now, the weird thing about this entire conversation was that Dawson never calls Caitlin, like ever. Never calls to say, how are you doing? Do you need some help? Etc., etc. So that was kind of weird, but whatever. Brothers, am I right? Kathleen still hadn't called her back, so Caitlin called the house phone again and left another voicemail. Closer to 6 p.m., Caitlin called her mom multiple times but still didn't get a return call. This was really weird for her mother because she never ignored any of her kids. 2 minutes after her last call, Dawson called her phone again. Quote, oh, you know what? We actually sort of talked about that. Like maybe we talked about it. Maybe I should come pick you up. Dawson also, quote, made a few remarks about how their mother had just been seeming kind of tired that day. So Caitlin said, all right, come pick me up, and hung up the phone. When Caitlin arrived, Dawson wasn't at UOP. So her friend Samantha and Samantha's husband waited with her until Dawson did come around 6:30 p.m. Dawson was acting really weird. Ben, Samantha's husband, tried to talk to him, but he acted like he didn't want to speak. He also acted fidgety around Caitlin, like he wouldn't look at her and, quote, seemed uncomfortable. As Dawson drove away with Caitlin, he said he had, quote, some errands to run. He said he had to pick up his, quote, medicine, which his sister knew was actually marijuana, and he got on the highway and went towards Sacramento. Now, Caitlin didn't realize they were actually going towards Sacramento, by the way. She thought they were going somewhere close to the house, so this was also really weird to her. Caitlin said that during the drive, Dawson spoke more than usual. Quote, he actually seemed like he was in a good mood. He seemed cheerful. He was talkative and chatty and just seeming like very casual. She said that he talked about their mom. Quote, oh yeah, she's been doing great on her diet. She's lost 21 pounds in the last 4 weeks, but this diet is only like 500 calories a day. She's been acting really tired lately. I think it's not enough calories for her. She's been seeming really tired. During their drive, they stopped at a Walgreens in Sacramento, and Caitlin noticed that Dawson was still fidgety, quote, sort of pacing the aisles. They then went and got some food and ate in the car. He then appeared to get lost trying to find the spot where he picks up his marijuana. Quote, I usually don't come out here in the daylight, but it's dark this time, so it's throwing me off a little bit. They drove around for about an hour, quote, driving up and down the same streets. And then Caitlin asked him, quote, is there a specific street you're looking for? So he stopped and got a place which was only 2 minutes away from the Walgreens where they'd initially stopped. So you couldn't find your way literally 2 minutes from where we were? He got out of the car and said, quote, I know this might seem a little strange, but Mom understands. We've done this before. I need to park here and walk to where I'm going to go. I'm sorry, this one has a lot of quotes, so bear with me with constantly saying quote. Like, I would say eat a bite of chocolate every time I say quote, but you'd probably die of diabetes, so bear with me. 20 minutes later, he came back to the car, but while he was walking to the car, Caitlin noticed he was vomited on the walk back. So while he was walking back, he just kept throwing up, stopping, continuing, throwing up, continuing. Like, that's really weird. They then drove back home and got home close to 11 p.m. Caitlin went right up to her room and dropped her bags off. She then went to the bathroom, but on her way there, Dawson stopped her in the hallway to say, quote, Caitlin, Mom's asleep. And she said, okay, because she'd already figured that and wasn't going to bother her anyway. She went about her night and went to bed. Every time she got out throughout the night, though, Dawson was awake, quote, sort of pacing in the hallways. I like saying quotes from like the reports that I've gotten because I want you to know that these are exactly the words that were used, and it usually comes from like police reports or the trial report. So I want you to know it's exactly the words that were used, not words that I'm putting in my own words. So this is why I always have quotes in my story. In the morning, Dawson was awake before Caitlin and stopped her as soon as she came out of the room, asking her if she got his text. She said no because her phone died and she'd been too tired to turn it back on. He said, okay, well, Mom woke up at 5 or 6 this morning and told him that she hadn't slept well, so she was just going to sleep the day away. She was just going to stay in bed, basically. When Dawson went outside, Caitlin knocked on her mom's door and asked her if she was okay, but her mom didn't answer. When she tried to open the door, she found that it was locked. So she knocked again, a bit louder this time, and tried the door again. But her mom still didn't answer. Caitlin decided to try and look in her mom's bedroom from the window outside, which I would totally do. You know what? I'm more crazy. I probably would have busted open my mom's door if I knew my dad wasn't in there, because I'm not going in there if I know my dad's in there, because there's stuff that adults do, that mommy and daddies do, that you don't want to see. But if I knew my mom was in there, first of all, she doesn't lock her door. Second of all, she's not answering me no matter how hard I knock. I'm a bit crazier. I'm going to kick down the door. I'll get in trouble for it later, but that's okay, as long as I know you're okay. But Caitlin still did the right thing going outside trying to look in the window. I'm not saying Caitlin didn't. So she tried to look in the window, but her mom's shutters were closed, so she couldn't do that. But she figured she was being paranoid and went about her day because, her brother said that mom was just tired, so what was the reason she had for not believing him, Later that day, Dawson drove Caitlin to the bank. Basically, he told her that mom said to do it, so that's what he's doing. She noticed that he was still acting weird like he did yesterday. Quote, he was being unusually, cheerful, seeming, being chatty, and just, eager to have conversations, and just being very casual. After she was done at the bank, Dawson asked her if she wanted to go anywhere else, which, first of all, was weird because in the past months, Dawson had been acting very selfish and never did anything for anyone except for himself. I mean, I don't know, maybe he's turning a new leaf and he wants to help his sisters. I don't know. She said she didn't need to go to Target. Did he? And he said, quote, not really, just for fun, just to go walk around Target. Caitlin said that she did need to go to AT&T though to get a charger. Dawson suggested an AT&T that was further away from the home, and Caitlin said, yeah, whatever. After that, they went home, and Caitlin went out with her friend to go get lunch. When she got back home, Dawson wasn't home. At 5:30 p.m., she realized she still hadn't seen her mother, so she went to try the door again. It got to the point that she was pounding on the door, but her mother still didn't answer. She called her older brother, Justin, and he told her to call 911. So she did this. When EMTs got there, they broke the door off of her mother's door and... Cliffhanger Kai's back! Now, how much do you hate me right now? To never hear me again, join us over at patreon.com/theloveandmurder. Anyway, do you like reading mystery and suspense books? Well, I do. That's actually my favorite genre. One of my most favorite authors is Dean Koontz, which you can find on audiobooks.com. Audiobooks.com is an amazing place to find audiobooks if you're a book junkie just like me. You can find over 400,000 selections, so they have any title that you like. When you sign up to audiobooks.com today, you will get 3 free audiobooks and 30 days free to get member-exclusive perks and deals. After your 30-day trial, you can cancel, but still buy audiobooks or keep your membership starting at only $14.95 a month with one audiobook of your choice included and discounts on additional audiobooks. Come on and join me over in audiobooks.com. All you have to do is click on the link in my show notes below to get started today. And now, back to the show. That's when they found Kathleen's body. She was at the entrance of her bedroom right when they opened the door. EMTs then called police, who came out, arriving around 6:13 p.m. Police saw that Kathleen had been stabbed in the neck, abdomen, and chest. During the investigation, they noticed that there were no signs of a break-in and nothing had been stolen. The bedroom was, quote, neat, orderly, nothing appeared to have been taken or broken. At 1:30 a.m. on November 1st, Dawson was arrested a little ways down the road from his house. He was charged with premeditated murder and personal use of a non-firearm weapon and held at the San Joaquin County Jail, held without bail. The reason he was arrested is due to the blood evidence that police found and also the fact that he was the only one home with his mom at the time of the murder. And after interviewing family and neighbors, his demeanor after his mother was killed. Also, when they arrested him, if that wasn't enough, he was wearing a black leather jacket that had stains of his mom's blood on it. I mean, next time just wear a sign. I'm just saying. Now, lambs. During his interrogation, let's talk about this. Dawson acted erratically. pet in the air with his hands. You know how you would pet a cat or a dog or whatever, your pet in the air? Petting your pet. He was doing that in the air with his hands, asking weird questions, looking all over, waving his head from side to side. You know, like how Stevie Wonder moves his head? That's what he was doing. Basically, pretending to be insane. Doing a horrible job at it, but pretending to be insane. So I guess this was his plan. Trying to pretend to be insane so that he could plead not guilty by way of insanity. Now, I saw this video, and truthfully, in the first 10 seconds, I got pissed. Like, I literally had to take a break from watching this video. I actually have someone close to me who's not lucid. They go through visual and auditory hallucinations and everything. They are literally insane. I don't want to use that word, but this is what they're using in the case. So they're literally insane. Now, the reason I get angry is because I hate when I see people trying to act insane. Like, literally, if you've been around somebody who's deemed as insane, they don't act like they show in movies. They don't sit there, I don't even know, moving their head from side to side and petting the air, for instance. So they don't act insane, and they don't think that they're insane. They think you're insane. They don't think they're insane. It's so annoying to see. But anyways, I digress, off my soapbox. The thing is, Dawson didn't know he was being filmed. So you end up seeing how he acted when detectives are in the room, and then how he acted when no one was in the room. So while he's acting like a damn fool, detectives ask him, quote, "We've got some stuff we want to talk to you about. We want to talk to you about what happened to your mom." Now, here's Dawson acting like he's all confused and stuff. Quote, "What happened to my mom?" Actually, this is how he said it, literally. "What happened to my mom?" Detective says, quote, "Well, you tell me." Now, looking up at the ceiling, Dawson goes, "People called me and said something happened at home to Mom. They were very, very vague. What happened to Mom?" I'm literally trying to emulate his voice from the video here. Detective said again, "You tell me." And Dawson says, quote, I was waiting for my brother and sister to tell me." Then, as the detective continues to question him, and as crazy as he's supposed to be, Dawson asked if he should have a lawyer present. "Oh, I'm so crazy. Oh, there's butterflies in there. By the way, do I need a lawyer?" Literally, like, really? The officer told him that he could have one if he wants. Now, I have a couple of videos of this interrogation and of the interrogation with a psychologist's commentary in the Lamb Patreon. It is so infuriating to watch the interrogation because of Dawson. Oh. But the one with the psychologist's commentary is so very interesting. Now, you can get this as an extra in this case by signing up to the Patreon for only $3 a month donation, www.patreon.com/loveandmurder. I suggest you do it. Watch these videos. And I would watch the video of the interrogation first, and then the one with the overlay of the psychologist. During Dawson's first court hearing about the upcoming November 10th arraignment, prosecutor Sherry Adams said to the overseeing judge that Dawson is considered a high-risk inmate and that she feels that he should continue to be held without bail. Quote, "We're still waiting for all the evidence from the police reports from Manteca PD, because I know y'all are going to message me and be like, it's pronounced Manteca. I'm just playing. I like when you tell me how it's pronounced. I hate when you say pronounce it properly with no context. I do appreciate when you do tell me how it is pronounced. Now, going back a little bit, Dawson was a graduate of the University of the Pacific. He worked his way through college as a waiter and lived with friends before he moved home the year before. He had been going to a therapist for the last year because he said he had a demon in his head. The therapist told him that he had to, quote, face his fears and face life head on by watching scary movies and putting on scary costumes. What? Like, literally, what? I seriously have no words for this. Now, if there are psychologists out there who listen to my little show, first of all, thank you. Please send me an SOS or a comment. If you want to keep your comment confidential, the best way is to send me an SOS or email noconductradio@gmail.com, which is in the show notes below. I want you to tell me what you think of what this psychologist told him to do. Personally, and without a psych degree, I think it's bullshit. How about listen to your patient, put in the work, and don't just send him home to watch scary movies? It sounds just like you don't feel like doing your job. But who knows? I could be wrong. That's why I want to hear from you. Also, if you've had something similar happen to you where the therapist basically didn't listen to you, tell me your story. I'd love to hear it. The family had lived in this house for more than 10 years, and before that, they lived in the Bay Area city of San Leandro. Although they'd made the move, the kids' father, Tom McGehee, would still commute to work between where they are now and San Leandro. The kids grew up going to Manteca High, where Dawson was a football player and reported to be an excellent student. The kids were all in band, and Caitlin was the first student in her high school to win the decathlon. Wow. At the time of his mother's murder, it's reported that Dawson was wearing a Halloween mask and a whole costume. A neighbor who was interviewed said that the Monday of the murder, Dawson had come out of the house and said to him, quote, "You know, the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away." And as a neighbor, I'd have been like, the hell does that mean? I just asked if everyone was okay. Also, at the time of the murder, Tom was away in China at work. And when his family called him, he immediately dropped what he was doing and came home that Tuesday. At the trial in 2011, Dawson pled, just as I thought he would, not guilty, by way of insanity. His defense said that he suffered from delusions and hallucinations. The jury, on the other hand, said, yeah, whatever, you'll be tried as legally sane, sit the hell down. The interrogation video had something to do with their ruling. Oh, so when people are in the room, then you have hallucinations, but as soon as they leave, the hallucinations leave with them? Interesting. Sane. The coroner testified that due to the wounds, it appeared that Kathleen struggled during the attack. A lot of the wounds were defensive in nature. Quote, McGehee stabbed his mother 10 times in the neck, chest, and abdomen with a kitchen knife. 8 of the stab wounds were independently fatal. There was also evidence of, quote, neck compression. People who knew him came forth and said that during college, Dawson was energetic, outgoing, friendly, and sociable. But then between 2008 and 2010, he started turning away from people. He became reclusive and, quote, not very cheerful. In the last 2 months before the murder, Caitlin said that Dawson had, quote, barely spoken, but he had started being disrespectful to Kathleen. One incident that Caitlin remembers is that Dawson, quote, just berating her and belittling her. She would speak up for herself sometimes, but Dawson would usually just stare her down, and he was just more powerful with words than she was. Justin testified to the changes too, but he said the changes were more like around April 2011. There was even a time when police were called out to the house because someone reported a disturbance between Dawson and Tom because Tom wanted him to get out of the house, and Dawson told him, well, you can't kick me out without initiating eviction processes. Dude, that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. You don't have a contract with your parents to live in their house. They're doing you a favor. Well, I don't mean a favor. Well, actually, yeah, you're 26. They're doing you a favor at 26. And basically, that's exactly what the cops told him. Justin said that after this, Dawson's actual physical movements changed. Quote, I observed him begin to exhibit a lot of physical mannerisms, physical behaviors that I hadn't seen before. And it was very sudden emergence of those things, not a very gradual one. It was very sudden. He began exhibiting lots of shaking mannerisms. He would look off to the side. He would talk differently, in a stuttering, halting way. I observed as he sat down to read to them, Justin's kids, and he began talking. All of his stuttering stopped and all of his physical shaking stopped. I saw his body go from completely normal, functioning normally, to suddenly resuming all of those physical shakings and eye movements and voice shakings. It went from on to off as he was reading and all the way back on when he was done. Justin said that his mother was a caretaker in her heart. She took care of her sister who died of a brain tumor, and she took care of her brother who had died of Parkinson's disease. Now that Dawson was acting this way, she gave him most of her attentions. She was, quote, far more protective of him than she was with anyone else in her life put together. Normally, she avoided conflict, but since she had started training to become a victim's advocate, she began to be, quote, more assertive. Justin said that since his mom's murder and during the trial, quote, so far there has been no remorse at all, only arrogance. There has been no honesty, only lies. I hold him to be more similar in character to evil than any other human being I have known, and yet I refuse to hate him. I refuse to allow someone as morally perverse as he is to force me to live a life of bitterness and ruin the joy I have in loving others. Prosecutor Adams said, quote, Katie was involved in other things besides her son. She was starting to stand up for herself. He was very selfish and wanted attention all the time. He required a lot from his mother. Dawson's father mirrored the same sentiment. Then, Dr. John Yarbrough testified that he'd seen Dawson twice before the murder, and he was, quote, noticeably agitated. He was writhing, moving. He looked very restless, very uncomfortable. That was pretty much throughout the interview. And at different parts of the interview, when we were talking about things that were very difficult to talk about, he would demonstrate difficulty breathing, and it was very difficult even for someone to talk to him and watch that struggle he was going through. Dr. Yarbrough diagnosed him with PTSD. From what? And conversion disorder because of the, quote, abnormal physical movements that had no known medical reason. What the hell is conversion disorder? Let's look it up. And by the joys of editing, according to Dr. Rakshith, I'm going to try the last name, but don't come for me. Bharadwaj, Bharadwaj. Conversion disorder is, quote, a mental condition in which a person experiences blindness, paralysis, or other nervous system neurological symptoms that cannot be explained by illness or injury. Well, I guess he already explained what it is before then. This condition is very rare with less than 200,000 cases a year in the U.S. and can last for several days or weeks. It's most common in people 18 to 35 and more common in females. Dr. Yarbrough had previously prescribed him an antidepressant in a previous appointment, so he increased the dosage and added on an anxiety medicine. When Dawson came back in 2 weeks, Dr. Yarbrough said that his, quote, abnormal movements had decreased slightly. Dawson never complained of any hallucinations, though. Then, the psychiatrist who evaluated Dawson after the murder took the stand. He said that Dawson didn't have any psychotic disorder, he was just addicted to weed. Like, literally, that's what he said. Quote, marijuana dependence in institutional remission, anxiety disorder with panic attacks, and psychosomatic symptomology, and adjustment disorder with anxiety and depression. What is psychosomatic symptomology? All right, let's look that up. According to the Cleveland Clinic, psychosomatic disorder is a psychological condition that leads to physical symptoms, often without any medical explanation. It can affect almost any part of the body. People with the disorder tend to seek frequent medical attention, becoming frustrated with no diagnosis. Behavioral therapy and stress reduction may help. But isn't that what Dr. Yarbrough said? All in all, the prosecution said that Dawson murdered his mother with malice and deliberation. They also said that the murder was premeditated. Dawson was angry at his mom for taking Tom's side instead of his. The defense said that if he killed her, it was because the hallucinations told him to. The demons, he said, were coming after him is why he did it. They used this evidence. A psychologist who was appointed by the trial court to evaluate Dawson, Dr. Wendy Weiss, said that based on her review of the police case files, the other doctors' records, and finally an interview with Dawson himself, he had schizophrenia. During her interview with him, Dawson was sloppy and, quote, made odd gestures with his hand, quote, rubbing his left arm with his right hand and rubbing his abdomen in an unusual manner. And he, quote, complained a lot about physical discomfort, saying that he felt like, quote, fire on his skin and blades under his fingernails. So how many things are they going to diagnose him with? I'm just curious here. More people who knew him testified that he told them he was being tormented by what he called demons. Then Colin took the stand again and told the court that sometime in 2010, Dawson would be walking around the house at night with no lights on, wearing overalls and a Halloween-type mask. On one occasion, him and Dawson went to watch a horror movie, but when he looked around for his brother, like they were supposed to be sitting together in the movie theater, but when he looked around for his brother, he said he saw him sitting off to the side alone with a mask on again. In the beginning of the trial, Dawson constantly fidgeted, moved his head backwards and forwards, looking up at the ceiling and down at the floor and rolling his eyes all around. You know, trying to, quote, look insane, as if insanity has a look. But when the judge asked him if he understood the seriousness of the charge, he said he did. The longer court went on, like through the days, he would appear more and more composed. It was also revealed that the night before the murder, Kathleen had asked Dawson to move out of the house and get a job. I guess this is why he figured she sided with her husband instead of him. In the end, the jury didn't believe Dawson's performance or that he was insane. I mean, no one believed that from the jump. The jury found him guilty, and in 2013, he was sentenced to 15 years to life in prison. He was admitted in prison on February 5th, 2013, and is eligible for parole on April 2024. So as of this recording, that's like in 6 months. Currently, he's in Mule Creek State Prison, and when I checked, it said he was up for parole on July 2023, but I haven't seen any updates since then. Quote, "The whole family is damaged from this, and it's so sad. I remember Dawson as a smart kid with a great sense of humor, with the spirit of a Huck Finn who..." What? With the spirit of a Huck Finn? What does that mean? Anyways, with the spirit of a Huck Finn who would do little mischievous things to make a joke. We all have good memories of Dawson. I really feel badly for the family and especially for him. When people look at a tragedy, they look at a victim, but at this time you have to look at him too. I would feel bad if everyone would make assumptions how bad this kid is without knowing him. I am sad and sickened over the whole thing. It makes you wonder how a good kid can do such a monstrous thing. Basically, I wasn't making assumptions at how bad he was, actually. I was going off his family who knew him pretty well, and this is what they reported. Literally, contrary to some people's popular belief, because I get messages about this, I don't report like pulling stuff out of my butt. I report based on case files that I found, case reports, the trial reports, trial files, articles. This is what I report from. So nothing comes from me. Nothing. And if it does, I tell you the little things that I put in there. And it's usually like in a conversation when I'm adding filler. But, I'm just responding now to this quote, how he's saying, don't make assumption on how bad this kid is. Well, I mean, from what his sister and brothers are saying, he was pretty in the last couple years of before this thing happened. So I'm going by what his family, who knew him very well, are saying. And that is the case of Dawson McGehee. But before we wrap up, I have one more thing. In 2017, 2 forensic pathologists, Dr. Bennett Omalu and Dr. Susan Parson, accused the San Joaquin County Sheriff, Steve Moore, of interfering with death investigations to protect law enforcement officers. They also alleged that he interfered with their work on some suspicious death and high-profile homicides, possibly compromising these murder cases. Both of them accused the sheriff of trying to influence certain investigation of theirs and the finding. They brought forth hundreds of pages of memos, letters, and emails allegedly supporting their claims. Quote, "A person who does not have a license to practice medicine in the state of California should not be involved in the medical evaluation of a case and provision of a medical opinion." In the same year, they both resigned their position with the county. Now, I know you're asking, Kai, What the hell does this have to do with this case? Well, Dr. Omalu was the forensic pathologist in this case. The lead investigator had asked Dr. Omalu to come and examine the body at the house before it was moved. However, the sheriff's office refused to send him. Actually, they never even told him about the request. The next day is when Dr. Omalu was able to perform the autopsy. However, because of the delay and the refrigeration of the body, Dr. Omalu's ability to perform forensic pathological analysis to ascertain the time of the death was significantly impaired. This was reported by Prosecutor Adams. And I'm sorry, that whole thing I just wrote, because of the delay in the refrigeration of the body, was a quote of Prosecutor Adams. Using this information, the defense argued that, for all they knew, Kathleen was alive on October 31st and someone else killed her later on. Prosecutor Adams said, quote, "There were members of the jury that entertained this theory as a reasonable possibility based on the evidence. Thankfully, the jury in this case was able to render a verdict of guilt. However, the date and time of death was a real source of debate during the 5 days of jury deliberations." Prosecutor Adams sent a letter to the sheriff's office that was never answered. She's not sure why the sheriff denied her request for the forensic pathologist to come to the scene, but she believes that changes in the office have been made since then. At the time, they said, quote, "This case is more than 6 years old, and staff assigned to the coroner's office at the time have either retired, rotated out, or are no longer working at the sheriff's office. She's had another case and requested Dr. Omalu, and he was sent out." Now, that's the end of the case. As far as I can tell, Dawson is still in prison, but he may be out next year. So what do you think about this case? Actually, I do love hearing from you, but the podcast platforms don't give me any way to respond to you. So actually, what I'm planning on doing starting this week is at the end of the week, I'm going to compile all of your comments, if there are any, because sometimes there's not. But if there are any comments, I'm going to compile all of your comments and put it together for a weekend episode. So the weekend episode is probably going to be a Saturday episode. It's just going to be your comments and my replies to you. Just note, though, if the comments are stupid, I'm not airing them, so don't bother. And by stupid, I mean when I get idiotic comments about, "I don't like your voice or your accent," or some such nonsense. I'll only share comments that contribute to this episode. So, if you want to hear your thoughts on air, you have 3 ways of sharing them with me. You could tell me in the comments below. You can join the Lamb Facebook group and tell me over there. Or you can join our exclusive Lamb community here at patreon.com/loveandmurder. Actually, you have 4 ways of telling me, because you could send an SOS. I've been saying 3 ways all this time. You can go to the website murderandlove.com and send me an SOS. But speaking of Patreon, right now we have options starting at only $3 a month donation. You get commercial-free episodes, so like this episode minus all of the commercials, and no Cliffhanger Kai, unless you like Cliffhanger Kai. You also get all the editions of the case, pictures, videos, pictures of evidence, all of that. So like this case, there's 2 videos that I'm sharing and some pictures. The best things are those videos that I'm sharing of his interrogation. Now, you get that with the $3 a month donation, but the best tier is the $5 a month and above, because not only do you get all of these things, but you also get bonus episodes and access to everything I post throughout the web. You get this here all in our Lamb Patreon, www.patreon.com/loveandmurder. And when I do my segment Kai Rants, which is Monday through Friday now, give or take a day, you also get an extra. If there are any extra super duper really crazy cases, that goes into Patreon. So you also get extra Kai Rants over there. Patreon.com/loveandmurder. I'll be looking for you in there. And every time someone joins my Patreon, I actually have a bulletin board up in my office that's right above my computer where I record. Your name will go on that board. So I get to look at your name every single day and thank you for helping to support the show. So if you want your name on that board, you want to be a sponsor of Love and Murder, or you just want to get your extras, then join us. Patreon.com/loveandmurder. Either way, I would love to have you. And that's all I have for you today. I will see you in the Kai Rants during the week, and next week Sunday for your next full episode. Bye. Hello. No surprise here. You knew I was coming. Don't forget to give me a 5-star review on whatever platform you're on. You could do it on Apple. You could do it on Spotify. You could even go to Spreaker and do it, Spreaker.com, and look for my show. You can also download Good Pods and rate Love and Murder on there too. Either way, no matter where you rate me, it's going to help me out. So 5 stars. Put whatever you want in the description. I will thank you so much. Also, stay tuned for this week's batch of Kai Rants. Oh my God, so crazy. And next Sunday, I'm bringing you a case of a wife who left her husband. Or did she leave?